From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
The big cheese heist. See what has Dutch police looking for dozens of stolen wheels of cheese. China comes in with another big buy of U.S. corn.
They are back. They are buying.
What experts say this all means as a big storm pushes its way east. Farmers and ranchers prepare to batten down the hatches.
It's going to be hard to keep them healthy. It's going to be hard to keep things alive, I think.
The weather team is tracking everything from heavy snow to high winds, fire danger, and severe weather. Right now on AgDay. Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Happening right now, a big storm is trekking across the country, bringing with it everything from heavy snow to bitter wind chills and severe weather on the backside of the storm. And here's just a taste of what other parts of the country are in for. These scenes from western Washington state as more late season mountain snow fell on the region. The heavy wet snow causing travel delays. But good news also for moisture levels in that area.
AgDay weather brought to you by AGI Nico. AGI Nico dryers have an average of 1 to 2 pounds heavier test weight per bushel than screen dryers. They can also save you 30% on average in fuel savings. That's money in your pocket. Visit aggrowth.com/Nico for more information.
Meteorologist Matt Yurosavik joining us now. And Matt, there's a lot to unpack with this massive storm as it continues to move east.
Yeah, that's right, Clinton. We've got a cold side of this storm system, which we're going to talk about now. And then in just a little bit, we'll come back talking about the severe weather side of things and the warmer side, very warm air out ahead of this system. But take a look at the wind chills as we head through tomorrow morning. Very warm out ahead of this. Cedar Rapids at 60 degrees. But notice right up where this low is kind of bringing all of this moisture in, cold air wrapping in on the backside. Rapid City. 2 degrees. That's what it'll feel like. 5 in Billings, and we will have some snow going on up here. Bismarck feeling like 14 and going to get buried under some snow. Great Falls the same. Fargo will be dealing with that, and even some snow up near Duluth as we head through the next couple of days. So very cold air on the backside of this system, but here's what that looks like with regards to our simulated radar. So moving this thing in time throughout the day, look at this storm. It's going to start to pump some snow out across North Dakota, really, and eastern parts of Montana as well through Tuesday afternoon. The system, though, it's still getting going, and it's not going to move a whole lot from Grand Forks all the way down towards Fargo and back toward Bismarck. A lot of heavier snow in there, and we're going to be talking about 1 to 2 feet of snow with this system still going by Wednesday afternoon and eventually moving its way on in. So notice a lot of that snow falling right up here along the northern plains, through the Rockies as well. But most of the snow falling right here, and it could be 2 feet plus in some parts of North Dakota. So a lot of snow falling there. I'll be back in just a little bit. We're going to talk more about the warmer side of things and that severe weather threat.
Farmers and ranchers preparing ahead of the storm as much as they can right now. Many worried about calves. Austin Langley is a cattle producer in East Central North Dakota. He says right now they have just under 1,000 mama cows that are calving right now, and they're concerned about how deep the snow will get and the possibility of 50-mile-per-hour winds.
What I have my stomach turning in knots about is the whole next week with below 30 in the low teens for this coming weekend too. After these calves get 2 foot of snow dumped on them and it's heavy wet snow, and then it stays cold and doesn't warm up at all, you know, it's hard. It's going to be hard to keep them healthy. It's going to be hard to keep things alive, I think.
The last time Langley says they had such severe weather this late would have been the 1997 blizzard. Now, Langley says back then ranchers were using snowmobiles to try to rescue calves. He says he has a couple of friends who are grain farmers coming to help him battle the blizzard this week, since they don't have any field work and planning won't be happening with this winter storm. And another big concern right now, high winds. It's continuing to fan the flames of wildfires, including this one burning right now north of Arapahoe, Nebraska, in the southwest part of the state. This video shared by Greg Tetley, who works for the city of Arapahoe, as he was out checking the area's well field. Now, the fire creating zero visibility conditions on a highway nearby, possibly leading to a crash that involved a fire chief from Elwood who was responding to the scene. The 54-year-old was killed in the accident. At last report, the fire had consumed about 30,000 acres and was 30% contained. Now, those wildfires also being fueled by dry conditions, and the storm we're tracking will only make extreme drought conditions worse over the southwest and southern and central plains. It's due to high winds and warmer than normal temperatures. Now, they add up to an extreme risk of fires for parts of Texas and the Oklahoma Panhandle on into southern Kansas, areas that have already been battling wildfires for several days. As Matt said, he'll have more on the forecast coming up. Happening later today, President Biden is scheduled to take a trip to Iowa. The White House says that the president will visit Menlo, a small community west of Des Moines. The president is expected to discuss investments in infrastructure, especially in rural communities. This is the president's first trip to the state since he was elected. A spokesman for biofuels company Poet telling the Quad City Times the company hopes that Mr. Biden will announce a federal waiver to clear the way for gas stations to sell E15 year-round.
Is there going to be any mention of making or keeping E15 available to consumers after June 1?
I am not going to get in front of my president, so you have to stay tuned on that one.
And you can hear more from this conversation between Landrew and AgriTalk's Chip Flory at agritalk.com. Meanwhile, another Biden administration cabinet member has tested positive for COVID-19. This time, it's the Secretary of Agriculture, Tom Vilsack. He joins Attorney General Merrick Garland and Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo on the list. Now, Vilsack recently traveled to Mexico to discuss trade. On Twitter, he wrote that he had been vaccinated and boosted and that his COVID symptoms were mild. China is starting the week with another big grain buy, USDA announcing the sale of 1,020,000 metric tons of corn. Of the total, 680,000 is old crop, 340,000 is new. Bill Biederman of agmarket.net saying it's a fairly significant sale because it's a follow-up from last week's big buy that was also more than 1 million metric tons of corn, and the first time they've been back in the market since May.
And there was a lot of traders in the meantime who started to say, you know, they're not going to buy as much corn. They're done in the marketplace. They're going to use their reserves, and they're going to have a big crop coming. Of course, that's all on paper. But the point being is they are back. They are buying. And to us, that's a really big thing. USDA has been lowering their export projections for China. This could mean that China will be back in the market and exceed and cause our exports to actually be revised upward later.
Biederman says this is a sign that China needs corn and they're not going to get it from Russia and Ukraine. He says they're concerned about meeting their needs and are shifting that demand over to our shores, calling it very positive. But soybeans sunk double digits here at home to start the week, and that can possibly be attributed to Shanghai continuing to be under COVID lockdown. It's reported 477 bulk cargo ships are waiting to deliver resources from metal ore to grain into the country, and they're just waiting in the sea off Chinese ports right now. Now, Bill Biederman says the risk of China's economy slowing down is pretty high, so there's a risk-off attitude by brokers and traders on crude oil and the soybean market right now. The World Bank says Ukraine's economy will shrink by 45% this year because of Russia's invasion. The war has shut down half of the country's businesses, cutting off imports and exports, and damaged a vast amount of critical infrastructure. Ukraine plays a major role as a global supplier of ag exports like wheat. But that's in question now because of planting and harvesting. They've been disrupted by the war. More than 4 million people have fled Ukraine, and additional 6.5 million have been displaced internally. Last week, USDA released another global supply-demand report, but what does it mean for livestock markets? We'll discuss that next. And later, many clubs are back hosting people in person. We'll stop by a Kentucky workshop in the country. Livestock markets continue to battle pressure from high grain prices and drought stress out west, but what about global supplies? Farm Journal Stein Morgan takes a look at what USDA is expecting in today's analysis.
Joined now by Mike North as well as John Payne. Well, last Friday, USDA making some revisions to total red meat and poultry production, looking at higher beef numbers, lower on the pork side of the equation based on the latest hogs and pigs report, and then also increasing milk production based on higher dairy cow numbers. Mike, is there anything there that really stood out that could change the game when it comes to livestock prices?
No, I think from prior reports, the USDA really kind of towed the line. I think, as we look deeper down the road, we should be expecting some sort of bigger adjustments on the poultry side, given what we're seeing on the bird flu story. But, hog and pig report definitely showed retraction in the size of the herd. The milk production report last month saw bigger cow numbers. So the WASI just kind of followed along in behind some of those other key reports to really kind of tell us what we already knew. And I would say, as we consider the feed cost infrastructure right now, we've got a couple of good months in front of us on livestock. There's decent margins out there, but margins really start to shrink as you get out into summer. And that's where things are going to be problematic for livestock as a whole. And it'll be a real big test as to whether or not we can keep feed usage where it's at.
John, have we seen any concerns on the demand side of the equation? I mean, USDA raising beef exports, but when it comes to consumer demand of meats, are there any red flags?
Well, I think high gas prices and things like that are going to eat into to the demand for beef, physical cash beef. But I mean, in the long run here, this, in my opinion, is a rubber band that's being pulled back. In every single report that goes by, cattle on feed specifically, we see more and more supply. And I think that's a near-term problem that will eventually alleviate itself. And there's going to be a heck of a snapback that's going to come here down the road. The question is really how far out you need to go to be a part of it. So looking out into Q3, Q4, maybe we're a little too expensive in the near term with grain prices where they are. But looking at Q1 of next year and Q2 of next year, those prices are not encouraging any production expansion at all. In fact, you might see cowboys go out of business. So they haven't. The feeder guys have not seen the party yet, and I think they will at some point. So it's like I said, it's only a matter of time, in my opinion.
All right, John, Mike, thank you so much for joining us. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll have much more right here on Ag Day.
To contact Mike, visit www.ever.ag or give him a call at 608-518-3106. To find John's newsletter, This Week in Grain and Oilseeds, head over to www.thisweekingrain.com.
Meteorologist Matt Yurosavik joining us here. And Matt, as we talk about this big cold front coming through the country, there's also the risk of severe weather with it.
Yeah, it's going to be a wide risk of severe weather. We're talking about all the way from the northern plains all the way down towards the Gulf Coast, and this is going to expand over the next 24 to 48 hours. And that severe weather thread stretches from the Gulf Coast all the way into the upper Midwest, and you can see it right here on the map. A few stronger storms could be likely all the way from central portions of Minnesota and Wisconsin down through the Mississippi River Valley, St. Louis down to Memphis, and even Jackson, Mississippi, all the way down into Louisiana. But if you notice this red area, this is the best chance for some of those stronger storms from central Iowa all the way down through eastern portions of Nebraska and into Kansas, Oklahoma, down into Texas as well. This severe weather threat doesn't leave us, though, by tomorrow. That's just going to slide eastward a little bit, a bigger area as well, and an area really from Illinois, Indiana, all the way down to northern Texas and parts of Louisiana, most of Mississippi, and western portions of Tennessee as well. So that severe weather threat continuing into tomorrow as that cold front still sliding off towards the east. So we'll look at what that looks like here. We've got a cold front in the east, some precipitation sliding off into the mid-Atlantic states, but this is our system right here. Snow starting to get going as we head through today across the northern tier up into the northern Dakotas there. This is the low right here that's really going to wrap up, bring all that cold air in from the west, but also pump a lot of moisture in from the south and the warmth as well. So we've got another kind of cold front here bringing some storms out ahead of that. And then as we continue on through the evening and into Wednesday morning, you'll see a lot of rain here as this warm air continues north. Some of this rain out ahead of that cold front moving up into the Ohio Valley and the Great Lakes. But here comes that cold front as we head through Wednesday afternoon and evening. That's going to start to bring, again, another dose of that severe weather eastward as that cold front continues to move. Meanwhile, back to the west, just some higher elevation snow showers and another low coming into northern California there, bringing some rain associated with it. So here's a look at the precipitation. Most of this up here in the frozen form in the higher elevations, and a lot of it going on across the northern parts of the Dakotas. More, though, coming right down into places that we've seen a ton of rain over the past couple of months. So we're going to see a lot of that continuing, and temperatures are going to be very warm out ahead of this system. Temperatures in the 80s out ahead of it, but behind it we'll have that Arctic air filling in with some snow on the northern side. That's a look around the country. Now let's take a look at the weather where you live. Jackson, Tennessee, hot and humid with thunderstorms, likely a high of 81 degrees. Bowman, North Dakota, cold and windy with heavy snow likely, a high of 28 degrees. And Del Rio, Texas, hot and humid, a high of 101.
So what would you do for cheese? In the Netherlands, apparently some thieves would heft hundreds of pounds out of a shed in the middle of the night. Details next. And later, it's not cheese, but wood these folks are working on as activities return following a 2-year COVID hiatus in the country.
Find farm equipment on Machinery Pete's April 19th online auction. No reserve, no buyer fees. Start bidding now at auctions.machinerypete.com.
USDA is increasing its milk production forecast to be higher due to growth in the number of cows. The agency raising the milk production forecast by 300 million pounds this month to a total of more than 226 billion pounds. Now it says the fat basis import forecast is lowered due to lower expected imports of cheese and butterfat products. Meanwhile, exports are raised on stronger cheese and butter shipments. And the price forecasts for cheese and butter were raised from the previous month on tighter stocks and firm demand. Investigators in the Netherlands are looking into a big cheese heist. A Dutch cheese producer in the town of Feyenoord says they woke up to find a mostly empty cheese storage room. They say overnight someone took 161 wheels of cheese, weighing about 3,500 pounds in total. The total value, about $23,000. Now the farmer says the thieves also took her trailer and 2 wheelbarrows from the farm. Police say they assumed that they were taken in order to transport the cheese. Now selling that stolen cheese in the country, it may be difficult as each one is numbered. Coming up, celebrating the return to normal and people getting back together. And back to nature, how this group is helping birds in the country.
Your next piece of equipment is on MachineryPete.com. Search equipment from dealerships across the country to find what you're looking for. Only on MachineryPete.com.
After 2 years of COVID pandemic, life is finally returning to normal for some parts of the country. The University of Kentucky's Jeff Franklin takes us to eastern Kentucky, where 2 clubs are enjoying getting together for activities once again.
The Wood Utilization Center at UK's Robinson Center in eastern Kentucky came alive with the sound of hammers hammering and drills drilling. This group of extension homemakers from Letcher County visited the center to make bird feeders to use at home to attract and feed birds, except for one homemaker who had another idea.
What are you going to do with that?
I'm going to make like this, a purse.
Oh, you're going to make a purse out of it?
Yeah.
It's not going to be a bird feeder for you?
Sometimes.
Lucy might be an exception to the rule, as is Bill Parks, the only man in the group who came along for the trip with his wife Matilda.
It's really something interesting. It's something you can use.
And you don't. How do you feel being the only guy in the room? Does that bother you at all?
Not much.
Making these bird feeders is what brought these 14 extension homemakers to the Wood Utilization Center, with Letcher County Extension Agent Nanette Banks.
They'd like having the hands-on activities to where they can do some fun things, but along with that, they do get the educational component.
The educational component was this Zoom meeting with UK Assistant Wildlife Management Professor Matt Springer, who was back on campus in Lexington. He talked to the group about the different variety of birds they might see at their feeders here in Kentucky. From the University of Kentucky College of Agriculture, Food and Environment, I'm Jeff Franklin.
All right, thanks, Jeff. And that's all of our time this morning. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day out in the farm country.